Welcome to the Bella Vista Garden program. I'm Jerry Horner, and my co-host today is JB Portillo.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, got your name
You got
right.
my name right. That's awesome.
I have a mental block about names sometimes. But anyway, she's a fellow Benton County Master Gardener and also a member of the Bella Vista Garden Club. And she's also a Northwest Arkansas Master Naturalist, which is very impressive.
Thank you.
So you're really into gardening and nature.
Yes.
So today we'll be talking about plants that misbehave in your garden and ones that should be avoided. And, you know, I do have some of these plants, but, you know, sometimes you just have to monitor them. So anyway, you have to check them before they become a real headache. And we'll also be talking about upcoming events you need to do and what things to do in your garden in June. So the upcoming events we talked about last month was the garden party that the garden club is putting on, and it's going to be wonderful.
Isn't it? I'm just so
I know,
excited.
and you're the co-chairman or chairman.
I'm
or whatever,
the chairman, but
and it's just amazing.
But it takes a village.
It does. It takes a village to
Yes.
put something like this on, and it's going to be June 10th. We had a program about it last month. If you want to go into Facebook or, YouTube, you can find that whole program. But we just wanted to remind you, in June, it's June 10th. If you're watching this before June 10th, you still have a chance to get there and see this wonderful garden party. And information you can get at bellavistagardenclub.com, or you can contact bvgardenclubtickets@gmail.com. And there's more information about it there. So,
And let's tell them at this point that if we'd like them to buy tickets ahead of time, but they can get them at the door.
oh, that's great.
Yeah.
They
A
can
little
still-
extra more money, but that's okay.
I think we just have a suggested donation of $10, and at the door would be $12.
Yes.
So that would be good if they haven't made up their mind.
That's right.
So they can come that day. Anyway, what we're here today to talk about is invasive plants, or plants that just don't behave well in our garden.
Right.
And you've done a presentation through the Benton County Master Gardener program that you're in charge of the
Master Academy is what it's called.
Master Academy.
And we are willing and able to, if you need a presentation, we can do that for you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
For
one of-
free.
well, that's one of the things in gardening. As gardeners, we want to share our information. When we learn things, we want to share that with other gardeners.
That's right.
Because that's how we learn, from other gardeners and from all sources. So that's our main focus, is just to share information. That's what we're
right.
here for.
That's right.
But anyway, you have this program
I do.
on PowerPoint.
We
that
do. And we're
we'll
going
go
to show
through
you
some of
here
these things.
in just a few moments.
Okay.
Yeah, today, like Jerry said, this is part of our Gardening 101 series that we do through the Master Gardeners. And this one just worked out really well today. Neil Mays, our county extension agent, really uses this one a lot. And you'll notice that many of the items on here not only refer to the home garden, but also just the fields and the roadsides and things.
Right.
But that's okay. So today what we want to do is we want to identify some common invasive plants, the wild ones. We want to identify plants that are hard to contain in a garden. A good one, top of my head, is mint. If you don't
Oh.
corral that stuff,
Well,
you're in
I
trouble.
put my mint in pots.
You're a smart
so
woman.
if you have mint and you put them in pots, you can enjoy them,
Yep.
but they won't drive you crazy.
That's right. And then we are going to try to identify a few things that are our means of controlling those unruly plants. And we're going to have a good discussion, as always.
Right, as usual.
Because that's what we do, Jerry.
And we talk.
We do. Okay. Did you know there was a mafia in the plant kingdom?
Yes, there is.
Oh.
A small mafia,
There is.
but they're tough.
They are tough.
They're tough.
So the view from the left-hand corner, my left-hand corner, top, is Kudzu.
Kudzu.
That, it is, I haven't noticed it so much here, but I was in Georgia
We do have it
recently,
here.
and it just covered everything. They're smart there, though. They're using it to make paper products.
Oh, well, I'm
So
glad
that-
they're using it for something.
I know.
Because for years they couldn't figure out what to do with it, and would take down oak trees that were, 20 foot tall.
That's right.
It's terrible. And we do have it in Bella Vista,
We do, I know.
in some locations.
And then in the top right-hand corner is thistle. And that, I don't know that we have that so much in the home garden, but we certainly do in the fields. And it's just impossible to get rid of.
Yeah.
and it's painful too.
Yes, it is. It's very thorny,
Yes.
so it's hard to get rid of.
Bottom left-hand corner is water hyacinths. Now, if they're where they're supposed to be, and somewhere in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, it's not so much of a problem. But they brought it over here, and what it does is it smothers out the life under in the pond. That's right. It takes over. It does beautiful plants, but that's just to fool you.
Well, if you have a water feature and you put that in your water feature, you have to make sure it's not covering your whole water feature.
That's right.
Because if you have fish or anything, it'll kill the fish.
It will.
They won't get any sunlight. So you just have to control it. And if you have too much of it in your pond, take it out. Just let it die, dry on the ground or something, and just let it die back and throw it in the trash. But don't just throw it in the trash alive.
Right.
Make sure it's dead.
It takes over the trash.
I just put it in a black bag, and let it dry.
With rocks in the bottom? No, just kidding.
No, it just.
We're talking Mafia here. And then in the bottom right-hand corner is, there are many invasive grasses, but this would be tall fescue of all things. It really can be some species of these
Well, you can get that when you get topsoil delivered.
Yes.
That comes from a field. You can get that in your garden.
You can, by accident.
Yeah, and sometimes you get Johnson grass too, which is really hard to control.
That's right. So let's go on. Now, invasive plants are often not native, and they're taken on and they're brought to the United States with good intentions, and they do thrive in their new environment because they don't have any predators at all.
They just take over.
And they commonly outcompete natives, and that's the sad part. But there are even some natives that have invasive tendencies. So the thing that kind of sums up today, and though we're not ready to sum up yet, but the prudent gardener does their homework before introducing anything, especially a new species, into the garden.
Right, because I purchased an artemisia one time at a nursery. They didn't know much about it, so I went on Google and checked it, and a woman had bought it in Atlanta and put it in her garden. It took her 5 years to get out of that rocky soil, she said. So I put it in a pot.
There you go.
And if you're ever in doubt, just put it in a pot. And you can put the pot in the ground and monitor the edges, or just use it in a planter.
That's right. There are many good websites. We always recommend what Neil, our extension agent, recommends, in particular, is go to reputable sites when you look up things. Don't just go out there on Google and find just anything, because unfortunately, some of the information, so always go to the university sites, and another really good one is the Missouri Botanical Gardens website.
And Dave's Garden is a good one, too, for gardeners. There's a lot of comments from people around the country about their experience with the plant.
That's right.
So that's
the city of Fayetteville actually has an amazing presentation right on their site, and it says, do this, not that. So it gives you a substitute for some of those things that you want to do.
That's a good thing to have.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about some possible plant headaches.
Yeah.
Right now, I think with all this rain, I think that's kind of what my weed garden looks like.
That's what my garden looks like.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah. All right, Bermuda grass, great for golf courses. Actually, I don't mind it in my yard at all because it does live through those hot summers, and I'm from Texas, and it works there. But it does spread by rhizomes in particular, and long, leggy things, and it'll go anywhere it wants to unless you corral it.
Right.
It's very competitive. But you can control it sometimes through chemicals. I'm not a chemical person.
I'm not either.
But a deep shade or sturdy barriers with no holes.
Well, and my husband takes the weed eater and does the edging, between the lawn and the Bermuda.
Yes.
So that it just cuts the root and just kind of keeps it under control.
Under control, yeah. Perfect for golf courses, though.
That's wonderful.
All
and
right.
lawns.
Moonflowers. Do you have moonflowers?
I did. It does drop its seeds and comes up, sometimes where you don't want it, but it's a beautiful plant.
It looks gorgeous.
And it can be controlled. It's not real hard to control. The little babies coming up are easy to pull out, but it's a beautiful plant and blooms and opens at night, and it's just a neat plant to have in the distance because there's the big blooms, and they're just really pretty. But
Well, and I guess
it
you
can be controlled.
Yeah, well,
Just remove the seed pods.
that's right. That's right. And then plant it in an isolated place, or like you said, in the distance somewhere. How pretty would that be?
Oh, it's beautiful. And
Yeah.
as dusk, you know, those white blooms just show up.
That's right. Now, we're on this next one, people are going to get mad at us.
Oh, yeah.
But Bradford pears are awful.
And they're planted everywhere.
They are. And you know, when they were first introduced, it was amazing. And they're beautiful.
They're beautiful
but
in
they
the spring.
smell.
Well, if you have them right next to your house, yeah.
Yeah, they
that's
do
not good.
smell. And they are suckers from the rootstock rise, and it's sterile unless it kind of captures another pear, like the cowrie pear, and then it just crossbreeds with it, and it's horrible.
Yeah, if you go down by Fort Smith, it's so invasive around the highway there. It's beautiful in the spring. When you go down the highway, it's just white blooms everywhere, but it's just taken over everything. So there's no native plants left along the highway there. So there's other pears that are better to plant. The Cleveland pear isn't as susceptible to damage from storms and wind, and it's still a beautiful pear, but it's not the problem that we have with
Well,
Bradfords.
very weak wood. That's the first tree in a windstorm that's going to
it'll
come
be
across.
damaged. Half of it'll be torn, you know,
Yes.
taken off.
All right, something I love,
Bamboo.
bamboo. But man, I have to laugh because my father-in-law served in Korea and other places, and he was enamored with the East, and he brought bamboo home and planted it in a small creek behind the house as a barrier. And he learned a lot of new cuss words trying to get rid of that because it was horrible.
It is.
And they're having that problem too at Compton Gardens. And they even have like 18-inch barriers down in the ground.
In the ground. And
they
it helps a little. But there's clumping bamboo and there is running bamboo.
Right.
And sometimes the clumping bamboo can be controlled, you know, if you're very vigilant and, you know, make sure that it doesn't go beyond the limits you want. But clumping bamboo is a little easier to control, but I just don't recommend bamboo. Let the people that are growing it to make floors or, you know, wood
Yes.
products out of it, let them grow it.
That's right.
And enjoy a picture of it or something.
Exactly,
Keep
because
the
it is
bamboo.
pretty.
It
You
is
know, I have to
pretty.
admit. Now this next is a grass. It's the Japanese blood grass is what most people know it as, and it's been designated as a federal noxious weed. It's dense mats of grass, and it smothers out everything else.
And it's illegal to sell it.
It is. And it's more, it talks about being a Forbes species, but that means, I wasn't sure what that meant. I looked it up, and it meant it's a little more woody than a grass. So it really can
It's
do
almost
some-
like a bamboo.
Yes,
really.
it is.
Yeah.
And it's potentially fires. It's easy to catch on fire.
Yeah.
So, I
But
think-
there is a smaller Japanese bloodgrass they call it. It's like 12 inches tall that you can, I don't even know if they sell that at the nursery anymore because they got this Japanese bloodgrass has such a bad reputation. But it was a pretty little red grass, you know, about 12 inches tall, and it's not invasive. It spreads a little, but nothing
well, you
like
could
that.
plant switchgrass in place of it.
Right, there's a switchgrass, it's
yeah,
red.
Yeah. Okay, and again, some of the people are not going to be happy here.
No.
And you and I talked about this. It can be invasive.
It can be if you have the running type.
Yes.
There's two types. There's the clumping type and the running.
This
And
is
usually-
loriope or monkey grass, what
Yeah.
people call.
Usually the variegated is the running. There is a variegated that's clumping, but I had the running variegated, and it just sends out a root, and it could be a foot over or 2 foot over. There's another one, and you know it can be take over your garden. But the clumping is really a pretty little accent piece. In fact, when I ever go to a master gardener state meeting and go to the garden tours, I don't think there's been one garden that I have gone to that didn't have loriope somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's usually the clumping kind, but it's just a nice little accent or border. But you just have to watch the variety that you're buying. Make sure it's not the running variety.
That's right. That's right. Now this next one, tell me again how you say this.
That's the cleome.
Cleome. It's a spider plant, a spider flower. Wow, I think it's just gorgeous.
It is beautiful, and it's about 2 foot, 3 foot high, and it comes in purple and white and pink, and it's beautiful, and the hummingbirds love it.
Yeah.
But it's got some thorns at the base, and the seeds will just germinate you know, like crazy. So if you have one, you're going to have several hundred maybe, you know, because those seeds just germinate quickly.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, if you have it in an area where you can control it and pull it up before it gets, you know, large, or till it under around the area where you want it.
Sure.
So it can be controlled, but
It's got nice
it's a little
spines and-
work.
Yeah,
There's
it's
some
got
work.
nice spines and thorns at
Yeah,
the
and
base.
it's really pretty at the top and swaying in the breeze. It's pretty.
Isn't that funny? You know, plants like this are gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
So they draw you in, they suck you in, and yet at the base they have thorns
Oh,
and
yeah.
spines to keep you from getting rid of it.
That's right.
That's
They
pretty
have their
smart,
defenses.
actually.
They have their defenses.
Okay, you say you have this one too.
I have the Italian arum in the garden, and the birds, I think, spread this little seeds. They come up with a flower that looks like Jack in the Pulpit. It's a beautiful white flower, and then it sends up this little spike of berries, which is really the seeds. And I think the birds take the seeds and they deliver them around my garden. And if you get it when it's really small, it has a very deep root. It's hard to transplant, and it's hard to get out, but you have to get it when it's really small and dig down, get that root out. I've had it where it grew in a hosta, so I took the hosta out and moved it because this one's not going to be moved. So you just have to be careful. And it's a shade plant. It's wonderful with hostas. It's an evergreen in the winter when the hostas are gone, but it does take some work, you know, to control it.
It's listed as invasive in Missouri, Alabama, Illinois, California, Oregon, and Washington. I don't see anything about Arkansas. Do
Well,
you?
we're right next to Arkansas, so if it's you know,
I know.
whatever applies to Missouri usually applies to us. So.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, gooseneck loosestrife. Wow, what a name.
Now this is the white one, and I do have this one also, and it is a little hard to control. If you let it go a couple years, you know, you'll be in trouble like I was. But if you just have it in an area and monitor it every spring and make sure it's not gone past where you want it, it's a beautiful flower. The bloom just looks like a little gooseneck. It's so pretty. And the purple variety is illegal to sell.
Oh.
The purple variety is even worse than the white. So you won't find the purple anywhere for sale, and it's designated as invasive. But the white one can be controlled. You know, it's like the mint and other
Sure.
things.
Well, speaking of
And mints, yeah.
mints, which are amazing and wonderful, and I use them in cooking. I use them in flavoring my kombucha that I make. I love them, but man,
They can take
you
over.
put yours in a pot, don't
Mine
you?
are always in pots. And
Yeah.
there's so many varieties of mint. You know, you have spearmint, peppermint, they
Chocolate
have
mint.
apple mint, they have all kinds of mints, and they're just all different, and they're wonderful.
Yes.
But you have to keep them in pots.
That's right.
You know, control them.
Yeah, I once had what was called a blueberry patch, and I was silly enough to plant mint underneath it, and now it's a
The
mint blueberry
blueberries, yeah.
patch. Yes.
Do your
absolutely.
blueberries taste like mint?
Actually, I don't know yet. I'm going to check that
Check
out
that
and
out.
see. That's a good question. And this is another one that a lot of people have. It's a good ground cover, periwinkle or the vincus. It's good for controlling erosion on slopes.
Right.
But
But the Vinca major is really hard to control. The Vinca minor is a little easier, and it's a smaller leaf, but the Vinca major I think should be avoided. I unfortunately had that, and it got out into the wood area, so I do have a section of the wooded area that's full of it, and we have to keep trying to control it.
yeah.
It was by accident that it got out there, so, and that does happen.
You know
by
what?
accident.
I hear you defending these plants.
Well,
I hear you, and
yeah.
that's okay.
but it's just more work, you
Yes.
know, and you can't just say, well, I'm not going to have that in my garden at all, you know,
Yes.
because some of these plants are nice and they're nice ground cover, and they do bloom in the spring, and they're great for pots. If you have a large pot and you have this vinca just spilling over, it's beautiful, and I use them in my containers, and are an area that I know that I can control, and that can be done. It's just a little more work.
Well, there's always a place for everything.
Vinca minor, like I said, is easier to control, and the Vinca major comes in variegated or green, and the variegated is a little easier to control than the green, but it does really spread.
Yes. Okay, and now we're talking about maples, especially the silver maple. This one, you know, everybody loves maples.
Oh,
but
they're beautiful.
They are. But, you know, it's a nice shade tree, and the fruit's eaten by birds and wildlife. But it is susceptible to sun scald when young. And it's not very drought tolerant. And it's kind of prone to injury.
Yeah.
In spite of the fact that it's beautiful.
But the maples in the fall are just so
Aren't
beautiful.
they?
You know, it's almost worth taking the chance of having a maple. I have an amur maple, which is, it could be a bush or a tree.
Oh.
And it only grows to like 15 feet. And it does put out little babies, what I share with people. And but it can be like invasive that way.
Yeah.
And form a cluster, but they're easy to pull out and control.
Well, here's another ground cover, creeping jenny or moneywort. Again, it's a great ground cover, but it's considered invasive, especially in the Northeast and the central United States.
Right.
Do you have any of this?
Yes, I do.
Ooh.
It seems like I have all these invasive plants. But again, I have a wheelbarrow that I have it in, and then I plant my annuals, in it, and it's a nice ground cover. And in pots, again, it'll spill over and just really be a good accent piece. But you do have to watch where you put it.
Exactly. Okay, now we have a flowering crabapple. It's a very showy ornamental plant. It does drop fruit. It's messy.
Right. And there are some crab apples that are like sterile.
Yes.
That
yes.
don't drop the fruit. So
yes.
crab apples are so pretty in the spring.
They are, and mine must be the sterile kind because it really doesn't drop fruit, but it has the coolest little round nodules on it that I think it's pretty.
Yeah.
I really do. It produces suckers.
And it's really a pretty tree in the spring.
Now, crepe myrtle, everybody likes crepe myrtle, or most people do. And where I came from in Texas, these were everywhere. It's showy, and it's a favorite for many things, but it is susceptible to winter injury, especially, and the diseases, the leaf spot, and the powdery mildew, and things like that.
And they're getting that bark scale now. That's a new thing you have to really watch with your crepe myrtles, and it puts like a black sooty covering on the trunk. But I've never seen my crepe myrtle put out any babies or be invasive. So
except
I'm
at the
not sure.
base,
with
grows
little
up from
suckers.
the base.
But we just love crepe myrtles because they have a long blooming season, and they are just so showy that I hate to tell people not to plant them at all. Just be cautious.
We're warning people to be cautious. That's what we're doing today.
Cautious.
None of these are horrible, except maybe kudzu.
Yeah.
Now,
and the honeysuckle could be.
The honeysuckle. I tell you
There's
what.
alternates for this.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what I was talking about on the the City of Fayetteville website. They have perfect solutions to a lot of these. So I recommend that you go out and look. But Japanese honeysuckle is one of, it's really bad this year. There are, as a master naturalist, many of the things we do is go out and just eradicate it, try to get rid of it.
Clean up areas.
Absolutely.
Because it does take over, and all the native plants will be gone if that takes over.
Yes. And the birds eat the fruit and spread the seeds.
And the other thing, too, is like the Japanese and Chinese wisteria.
Oh, yes.
Which we don't have on this slide.
We actually have it on the next slide. These are some other things that produce challenges.
There's alternates to the Japanese and the Chinese versions, or plants that you can buy in American wisteria.
It's not quite as pretty though.
Well, it's
okay.
It's okay.
Yes.
But it won't tear down your trellis you put it on or whatever. It's not that bad.
Well, other things like passion flower, which is also gorgeous, but it grows wild in the fields here.
Yeah.
Catnip is a mint. It's a part of a mint, and it kind of can take over.
Right.
Rose of Sharon. Tell me about that.
Well, I have Rose of Sharon, and it puts out a lot of babies because the seeds just drop, and then they grow very easily. And like I said, you just have to pull them out when you see them when they're small. But it's a beautiful bush, and the hummingbirds like it, and it's really a pretty bush. But it just takes work to keep the babies from taking over your world.
Yes. And fennel. I love fennel. Do you eat fennel?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it too, but I understand that it hasn't happened to me yet. But I understand that it really could take over your
It could.
vegetable garden.
Yeah, it could. And in my herb garden, I have fennel, and I have the garlic chives, which is on this list also, and you have to control them.
Speaking of garlic chives, I noticed one other master gardener and me. I mean, it usually just spreads like crazy. This year, it was just eaten to the ground by these little black critters.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
Oh, it's really awful. I mean, who would think a bug would mess with garlic?
You
of
would
all
think
things?
so, especially garlic chives.
Just this
yeah.
year. But anyway, I kind of
never
wanted
seen
it gone anyway. So,
So you got bug control.
I
It
do,
takes care
I
of
do.
it. Okay.
let's see. We also 4 o'clock.
I have
you have
4
4
o'clocks. That was my first memory of the garden when I was young. That was my job in the garden. My mother would have me go out and collect the 4 o'clock seeds. And I think now it's probably so she wouldn't have so many the next year.
Yes.
Because I collected tons of seeds. And but she would, they would rebloom or they'd regrow from the seeds every year. So I do have 4 o'clocks, and I do love them.
Tell us, share with us, why are they called 4 o'clock?
Well, they start opening up at 4 o'clock.
In the
bloom
afternoon?
opens in the evening. I have the hot pink color.
Oh.
And there's also yellow and red. I think there's a white. I haven't seen the white. But they're a pretty plant, But like I said, it's more control. And but the seeds are they're like a pepper seed, so they're large.
Gotcha.
So little children can gather them easily.
It was a good job to keep you busy.
Yeah, keep me busy.
Yes. English ivy. Oh, I regret the day that my neighbor who bought the lot, or lived in that lot next to me, decided it would be really cool if it grew up the telephone pole or the light pole or whatever that pole is that's sitting in our yard. And I keep it under control, but then the POA has to come and cut that down constantly. You can't kill it.
It's really hard to
It
kill.
is.
Roundup, works, but you have to, put 2 or 3 or 4 different sprays on it, and it's sad that you have to use that much chemical. But
Yeah.
those little tentacles go out there, and if you leave any of the root left, it'll grow again. So it is hard to control.
But it looks great.
And I do have it in an area where it is contained.
See, you have all of these. I tell you.
I do, and that I just caused a lot of work for myself.
We should have brought in samples today of all these things.
But I have it in an area where it's rocked,
Gotcha.
and it can't really go unless it goes over the rock, and I can keep it trimmed. So
It is pretty.
It doesn't go everywhere.
It is pretty over in in academic buildings in college. It looks pretty that
but
way.
it can really ruin your
Yes.
brickwork and your siding.
Barberry trees. I don't know much about those.
I have barberry, but I haven't seen it where it was invasive for me. It could be in other areas. It is, but and the obedient plant
is not obedient.
It's not obedient.
Not obedient.
It's a misnomer.
I'm still pulling
The
it
purple
up.
one.
Yes.
Is purple or red. Now I have a white one that's called Miss Manners. That does have manners. It doesn't spread. It just spreads in a clump. And I have, maybe my clump is 18 inches across now. When I started with like 3 plants. So, and that's over a 10-year period. So the white Miss Manners obedient plant is obedient, but not the purple.
Have you ever wondered why the nurseries sell things like this without giving some sort of instruction?
It's sad that they don't let you know that this needs some containment. You have to contain it. It's not just, just plant it and forget it. So, and the river birch and
oh yes,
can be invasive.
I think some of these are listed here because they're just challenges associated with them, not necessarily that they're terribly invasive, but they might cause disease and spread it to others and things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why it's listed
And
here.
some invasive plants, like I said, should totally be avoided. The ones we talked about first, the Mafia ones.
That's right.
These others, they are invasive, but they can be controlled.
Okay, so now let's share, as we kind of round up the end of the presentation here, what we can do, or what you can do. What we're here today to tell you is that you need to educate yourself and others, without being like, no, don't plant that, don't go there, but just be nice. and on how to identify and control some of those invasive plants.
Right.
At least if you know it's invasive, then you can take measures to keep it under control.
Now, sometimes the garden club, the Bella Vista Garden Club, will sell some of these plants at the plant sale.
Yes.
And we have usually have a little table, call them aggressive plants. So you have a warning that, you know, you may have to be a little more diligent about their spread. But if they're aggressive, you know, and we tell the people they're aggressive, they may want something aggressive to go down a hillside or something, but still be able to control the edge of that hillside, not to go into your neighbor's. Right. And a lot of these plants are planted by your neighbor, and then you have to deal with it.
Exactly.
So aggressive and invasive plants can be in your garden.
That's
but you
right.
have to control them.
That's right. Another thing you can do is don't buy or grow those.
Right.
You know, now again, there are some that we like to have, and then, in all seriousness, now I'm talking more as a master naturalist now than I am otherwise, but not really. Is report those invasive weeds. You know, people go to exotic places, though they're not supposed to bring anything back. They do anyway, and they are gorgeous, and they plant them, not realizing what they're doing to the environment.
Well, kudzu was brought over, you know, as a soil erosion,
Right.
which it was, and then it just got out of hand.
Because it has no natural pests or people that are things that keep it under control.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you know what? That's kind of what I had to share with the audience today,
And we can report the invasive weeds.
we can report those.
Website there?
Well, there is, but I would report it to your local extension office. Is what I would do, and you know, kind of, especially if you're here in Northwest Arkansas, call the extension office. Call Neil and tell him.
Right.
He probably knows, but tell him anyway.
Right. If you're having a issue with a
That's
certain
right.
plant,
That's
just
right.
like that artemisia. When I bought that artemisia, the nursery didn't know anything about it, and luckily I did, you know, Google it because it was a beautiful leaf. It was like a tricolor, and it was just really different.
Sure.
And then I see it in gardens once in a while on garden tours, and I'm thinking, oh, they could have a problem. But sometimes the nurseries just don't know. So, like I said, you have to do your homework.
That's right.
You know. So.
Okay. Well, that was what I wanted to share with you
Well,
today.
I'm sure glad you did. And now we know what to avoid. And if you want to see what happens, you can come to my garden and see what happens.
Or if you want to
If you don't-
experiment, come and get some of her plants.
Yeah, that's right. So, but anyway, June is a transition month between spring and summer, and that's where we start enjoying all those plants that we planted in May and April. And be sure and mulch your plants. It's really important to keep the moisture in, and you never know if we're going to have a drought year or adequate rain or inadequate rain, so we just don't know.
Yes.
So far, it's been a beautiful spring.
It really
And-
has.
and,
Spring is so full of promise. It
Oh,
makes
yeah.
you think you can do anything.
Right.
And then summer
Until your
sets in.
invasive plants can take
Yes.
over. So,
This is kind of your last chance to plant and deadhead annuals right now. You
Yeah,
need to
you
get them
should
in the
get 'em
ground
in
if
the
you're going
ground.
to.
Yeah.
And fertilizing and pinching those back keeps them from being spindly.
right.
Yeah.
And if you haven't finished planting your herbs, you can't really plant basil until it's like 50 degrees at night. So this is plant your last basil and all in June, and then pinch them back, and then harvest your garlic in June that you planted in October. So you plant your garlic in October, and then you harvest it in June.
Do you have any of
So-
that?
Oh yeah, I have
I'm coming
garlic.
over and getting some, okay?
Okay. I love garlic.
Okay.
So.
And bulbs, those spider lilies and the naked ladies bulbs can be planted for fall bloom. Now, mine haven't died back yet.
Mine are pretty much died back.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
they
I
are.
think several people have said theirs hasn't yet, but that's
Yeah, as soon
kind
as they're totally died back, you can
Right.
move them or
Right.
change.
right. Yeah.
And
so
then, but you got to make sure on your bulbs, like your spring bulbs, your daffodils, and
Oh,
and
yes.
tulips. Let those leaves die back. Don't cut those off. We've planted thousands of Bella Vista daffodils around the Bella Vista last year. And when I see them cut off that greenery, I know they're not going to have blooms next year. So they'll be so disappointed. And I'll say, well, why didn't they bloom? And we keep telling them, don't cut off the green leaves because that's what feeds the bulb
Exactly.
and creates the bloom for the next year. So.
Exactly.
And then lawns, we have your Bermuda, and you fertilize every 3 or 4 days. And you need to mow like 1.5 to 2 inches high. Don't cut them too low, especially the more droughty it gets, then you have to, mow a little higher.
Right.
And then they need at least 1 inch of water a week. So if it doesn't rain at least 1 inch a week, you have to supplement water.
Right.
And then perennials, daylilies should be blooming soon. So mine are just starting to bud, and they're coming up. So
Mine are blooming like crazy.
are they?
Yes.
The stellas are probably really
That's what
blooming.
they are.
And
Yes.
so
And you do have to deadhead those, right?
Yes, you
just
do.
Keep doing
Just
that.
deadhead.
Those little pods are huge.
those little seed pods. So, and then
What about roses? You're good with roses, and right now mine look kind of spindly.
yeah, they are spindly this year. I don't know why.
Yours too?
Yeah, I don't know if they didn't get enough water at a certain time or whatever. But just watch for Japanese beetles and fertilize. They're heavy feeders, so you want to fertilize. You want to water them good before you fertilize them, so you don't burn the roots. So.
Okay.
And then vegetables, you got
Oh yes, and
vegetables in your garden.
I do. I've got a bunch of things coming up, and again, peas are climbing the trellis. Tomatoes are flowering. Cucumbers are vining. And I'm just so excited.
Yep.
If you're going to, I make sure your tomatoes have enough fertilizer and water. Don't overwater, but
Yeah.
Make sure that they do. And then you can start harvest. Oh, I harvested a bunch of strawberries just this
Already?
morning.
Oh yeah, strawberries come up in June. Yeah.
They don't look as beautiful as the ones in the market, but that's because I don't give them steroids or whatever. They
Right.
give 'em.
Yeah.
But they taste great.
Right.
Yeah.
They're more organic.
Yes. And you also need to enjoy your garden because that's really important. I don't know about you. I would imagine, knowing you, that you spend a lot of time setting and watching your yard.
We do. We just
The
enjoy
birds
it.
and it's so wonderful. Even early in the morning, I go out on my deck and watch and
See
listen.
what bloomed.
Yes, and the birds. I'm telling you, the birds are just amazing this year
they are.
too.
They
so.
are. So if you have any other questions, you can check with the website, bentoncountygardening.org. And for more information on the Garden Club, you can go to their website. We're on hiatus for our meetings. We won't be meeting till September. We'll talk about that later in the year. And thank you, JB, for joining us.
Sure, it's always fun.
It's great. And I really want to thank you for being co-host and hosting some of our shows and being on our team this year. So it's been a great thing to have JB share all of her knowledge.
Well, it's fun.
And it's a fun thing to
Yes.
do. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the program and will join us next month. And until then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.